I am taking a brand new account all the way from 1000 rating to 2000 rating, and in this video I will teach you some interesting strategies that you can use to win more chess games. So for the first game we are playing with the white pieces against a 1126. We are currently rated 1100, and I will show you a very interesting strategy, at least if my opponent allows it, which is going to be a light square control strategy. So we are going to focus on controlling all of the light squares here in the opening, and I will show you how just by focusing on this one particular aspect of the game, controlling the light squares with our bishop, you can actually win games quite easily. So our entire focus is to control the light squares. What is our next move going to be? Pawn to d3. I want to control the light squares. That's just the entire plan. And I'm going to see what my opponent is. All right. I could play something like knight here to f3, but I would be blocking in my own bishop, which is not really what I want. So instead, I am going to play pawn to e3. So I can play my knight to e2. So at least I'm not blocking in my own bishop. And we are going to see what our opponent plays. My goal is to basically try to create a killer bishop, a bishop that is super strong here, always very annoying for my opponent. For example, if they think about moving their bishop anywhere right now, they would already be dropping this pawn. All right, I'm quickly checking. We do have to make sure they can never push this pawn, because if they can push this pawn, yeah, they are basically blocking up our diagonal. That's the biggest priority, but I don't really see any way for them to do it. So I think we are fine and that we can play our knight to e2. And we are just focusing on keeping this diagonal open. That's all we want. We just want to keep this diagonal open. In the future, if they never create a weakness, we will be attacking ourselves by playing pawn to a3, pawn to b4, pawn to b5, kicking away the knight. And I even think right now that's already the right plan. The big advantage with the knight here is also we are guarding our own knight. So if black tries anything to open up this bishop, it's not going to work. But black is basically not really doing anything, and I will just get to play my favorite strategy here, which is just attacking and trying to open up. Because we don't want any of their pieces to be blocking up this bishop's diagonal. I would love to push this, but I'm actually going to wait, I think, and play rook to b1 first, which supports this push, also gets the rook off this annoying diagonal. So I'm just focused on one thing only. We want to push here. I'm not even going to castle immediately because it's not really helping me with my strategy. Here we do have to be a little bit careful because our opponent is actually planning to do something which is very annoying. They are trying to trade away our light squared bishop, which would be a worst case scenario. So I am thinking, how can we prevent this? I think we can play pawn to h3. I think that is fine. If we castle, we basically play into their hand, and then they can do this. If we ignore, they are just putting the bishop there, so I'm going to put pawn on h3. For this particular case, if we had castled earlier, that would have been a little bit better, since we would have been able to play h3, king h2 earlier, but this also stops their plan. Okay, they are already freeing up the diagonal, but we do have to calculate a little bit here, so let me think. So I don't really see any plan for black. And the plan for white is pretty simple. We just want to attack here. And this pawn cannot move, otherwise they would lose it. If we push, they can take. And the problem is we actually end up with a little bit of a weakness here. So I think this looks like an interesting move. Queen to b3. Again, controlling this light square because he was actually also trying to see if he can push anything here. And we are also supporting this push. So it's just light square control. I'm not really worried about my king. If I really need to, I can even put my king in the center. Okay, so he is playing one of the best counter strategies, which is to set up this structure. But we are just going to try and break open with a4, b5, and then after a bunch of exchanges, break open the position. One thing we can also do is always develop the bishop here to a3. Okay, so he is pushing himself, which is a mistake. Because we can take this and if he recaptures with this pawn, he's always losing the rook. He is always losing the rook, but I do have to calculate a little bit that I don't, because of course the queen is gonna get to this diagonal. So I do have to be a little bit careful that I don't allow his queen to infiltrate my position. And also if I castle, I am basically dropping this pawn. So what I do think is a very interesting strategy, if we can, is to push pawn to e4 and basically close the position now that we are up material. I think that's a good strategy. The downside is if we close and he takes here, I cannot take with the pawn. So if we close, he takes, I have to take with the queen, he can attack. It's getting a little bit confusing. But castling is definitely not an option. We just have to figure out how we can solve the problem with this queen in. And I do have to do something, otherwise I'm just losing my rook. So if we play e4, my biggest concern is him taking here. Because if I take, he can take this pawn. I can take with my knight. So this. Queen goes in. And the queen also attacks this rook. But the rook is protected by the knight. No, the knight is going to be gone. And if we push and he takes, and we take with the queen, he can go in with his bishop. And if we move the queen... No, yeah, if we push this, take, or knight is actually stopping the bishop. So I think that's the right plan. I did have to do some calculation here. You always have to be careful of your opponent's counterplay as well. We have the right strategy, of course. We are winning. We are up material. But I don't want to make any simple mistakes. I think even f3 at some point might be a good plan. Because now we are up material, which means our basic plan is just to trade everything. We want to trade every single piece and go into the endgame. But we do have to watch out that we don't lose anything. And this position is quite complex, quite tactical. That's a very funny move, because he is basically giving us a free knight, but if we take it, we lose the rook and the corner. That's a very interesting move. Very funny move as well, I have to say. Well, my plan was basically to see if I could ever put a knight here. But I think we still have to strengthen our center a little bit. So one other plan I was thinking of was maybe playing this. Pawn to f3. Pawn to g4 is also possible, I think. But it's a little bit annoying to give him this square. So this, even though it looks strange, I think we are actually creating an interesting pawn structure. And now I just want to find trades. We basically just want to trade. Every trade is a good trade. And play a little bit more quickly. I thought he was going to do this, but it's not a good move for him. I was almost certain that he was going to do this, just because it looks natural. But he is just trading. And trading is always going to be better for us. We can also go in with the knight. Potentially take here. Potentially trade this. Potentially give a check. And if he trades, he is basically locking up the center forever. And with the locked center, our king will be super safe. So I think this is quite interesting. We also have this move. Yeah, the question is how do we take, but it's probably just only this move that we should consider. And now, even though we have the weirdest pawn structure I have ever had, I think we are actually doing fine. I might even be able to castle, maybe, in the future, at one point. Or we won't be able to castle, I'm not sure yet. Pawn to f4 also looks interesting. And pawn to g4 also looks interesting, but I don't want to put my king into too much danger. I basically just want to develop this bishop. Maybe I'll even keep my king here, just chilling in the center of the board. But I have to play a little bit more quickly, so I'll probably have to talk a little bit less for the rest of this game. All right. I'm gonna play some quick moves. I think I'm even gonna put the king on e2. Castling is always a problem. We drop this. The only problem with my bishop here is that I'm somewhat cutting the connection from my queenside pieces. Yeah. I'm gonna keep my king flexible. Oops, I think we are having some camera issues. But I'm gonna keep my king flexible in the center. But it's not the easiest position. And we are down 3 minutes on the clock. Of course we are winning this, but... Interesting, interesting. If we take, and he takes with the bishop, it's just a massive exchange. If he takes with the pawn, but I'm actually gonna block, I think. Because I want to close every opportunity for him to attack. And we are just gonna move the king. We are defending with the king. Crazy tactics. But I can already see that we have an opportunity to open up everything near the king. We also control the only open file. And both his bishops and queen here are out of the game. And with all the pawns on the light squares or dark squared bishop will be superior. So I think now we just have a simple plan. I don't see if he is doing anything with that move. I don't think so. Now we have this simple plan. But our queen is also somewhat out of the game. I think that just gives us a free pawn. And he is asking for a draw, but he is down material and giving away free pawns. No. I'm not gonna go for the draw. What I think I am gonna do is just go in for a checkmate, probably. This looks like it's gonna be a lot of trouble for him. He can attack my bishop. I think that's a temporary move. Well, it's actually... My cats are having a fight. I think it's actually interesting for him. Because he can now swap the rook over. And if I take, we just give away the bishop. I don't see any follow-up. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna play the safest move. And I have to play a little bit more quickly. But for now, I think the safe moves are the best plan. I see no way for him to make any progress. The only way he can win is if we lose on time. I might have missed something better, but with 1 minute on the clock, I'm gonna have to play a little bit quickly. I think we just have to trade everything. I think trading everything is just the best plan. I also love how this bishop is always stopping that push. This never works, I think. And also I was already preparing to put a bishop here maybe. And I'm also thinking about this move. Because his bishop is super trapped. But he is putting up some decent defense. Let's just try and poke a little bit. Let's see what he does. That would be great for us. Also, the rook is no longer defending, so I can remaneuver with the queen. He can push, which I think is a good plan for him. He is ignoring it, which I think is a mistake. And I have to play more quickly. Yeah, but I think we are winning this. I just have to speed up a little bit. And maybe I'll have to swap the rook over to block some checks. Yep, that's fine. We have a check. I think we even have a mate. That's also helping. That's also helping. And I don't have time to calculate any checkmates, but I think this will be an easy win. We can take the bishop. I'm gonna do a quick game review. I think we had probably some other opportunities as well. And now, that's a checkmate. That's a checkmate. So we are gonna win this. 50 seconds on the clock. The time control in this game was madness. And I think this is just a checkmate in one.